Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of IndieQuest, the celebration of the indie and obscure. I am Captain Drachma, better known as Seth to some, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts. How you doing today, Josh?
I'm doing pretty good. Fun fact, that's the first time you've ever brought in the show. How do you feel?
I felt very nervous. The thing, like at the very beginning, when I first started doing the podcast, I was like nervous every single time. Now I just chill on the couch until about 7:57 Eastern time, get up and go plug my camera in. But
there you go.
Caught me off guard there that time, and I got a little bit nervous again. So it's like the early days. But how are you doing, Steve?
I'm good. You know, it's 2023. All of 2022 is behind me. Got a week off for work and to get some house projects and stuff done. I'm feeling pretty good. I just went and bought some paint today. I'm getting ready to paint 2 bedrooms in our house. I've had white walls for the last 10 years, and I was like, well, I already got to paint the kids' room. I might as well paint my room too. So we're all set and ready. I'm quite pumped. I do recommend.
What colors did you go with?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, you got some like forest meadow green or what's going on?
Black. I recommend black.
Okay, a couple of comments there. One, the forest meadow green is a rude Minnesota stereotype, and I will not stand by it. Just because I have forest green carpet doesn't mean that you can make fun of me about my walls. And 2, you say black paint. It was funny. The first apartment I ever had, this is a tangent, and I'll get back to what we were talking about, but first apartment I ever had, it was this really weird situation. It was kind of like a sketchy apartment, and they had converted their offices into like a double-size apartment, and by adding like a kitchenette and a bathroom in the middle. And so I'm sure whatever, like city codes are necessary to have this qualify as a residence were not met, because it was literally like, gray office style carpet, like the fluorescent lights that are in office buildings. Yeah. It was not homey at all. But we were like an afterthought in these like people's minds when we got this apartment, because I guess they're used to dealing with people that are just like, I don't know, don't take care of their stuff or have lower credit scores or what, because they basically never interacted with us, talked to us, didn't care what we did. And they said, yeah, you can paint, do whatever you want. And I'm like 21. And so we had the bold decision to paint 2 of our walls crimson red and the other 2 black, like latex paint, pure black.
I assume that the walls were on opposite ends of each other, at least, right? You didn't do like corner walls in black.
No, it wasn't
and
like 2 corners. It was like the edgy 20-year-old's equivalent of like an accent wall.
I gotcha.
It was pure black paint, and I was like, man, they're gonna charge us so much money when we move out of here to repaint these walls. But they never did. They didn't say anything.
Nice.
Whoever moved into that apartment after me got black walls with crimson red accents. So I hope you enjoyed. But in terms of the paint we bought, so we're painting the like nursery / what is going to be our kids' room, and for that room we got a blue, like it's kind of a kind of dark-ish blue, but still a little bit like oceany. The idea is, even though it's a little brighter than you would traditionally think for this, we're going to do like a constellation space theme in that room.
Yeah,
have like some nice constellation curtains and stuff.
Yeah.
So we got a blue that's kind of like dusky.
Nice.
And then
like it.
For our bedroom, a nice royal purple, or a nice kind of like warm reddish purple, because that's very much my jam. Yeah. Anyone that has seen my stream or any of my social media anything will know that is very much my color. So that's what we went with. But yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Also, we're gonna talk about some good video games today, because you know what? This is our Game of the Year episode. We have a whole number of different categories and things that we want to get around to here. We're going to talk about your best art direction. We're going to talk about your best soundtrack. We're going to talk our favorite IndieQuest moments of 2022. A little pat ourselves on the back action. We've got a category for our indiest game of indie. The indiest game of IndieQuest. Or just in general, the indiest indie game. We've got the best indie game we played for the first time this year. And then the best indie game released this year, followed by, we'll of course settle on what our show's indie game of the year is. Well, our category just said the show's game of the year, I'm going to make an assumption that it's an indie game. I don't think we're going to come to an agreement that it's Elden Ring. It's probably going to be an indie something or other.
No, it's God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah, God of War.
Littlest indie game that you can think of, not expensive at all to produce,
So yeah, that is what we've got coming up for here. We're not bringing any indie picks or anything. We're just going to celebrate the year that was 2022. Now that we're in the early days of 2023, it's nice to look back, reflect, see what we loved, and sort of like close the book on what I think was a very good year for video games. But I just wanted to remind folks of what they're here for. Make sure that they know that there is an episode to come. But for the love of God, Drachma, what's good in your world? You asked us how we were doing. How are you doing, man?
I am doing super good. I actually am starting my vacation officially tomorrow, so that's awesome. Going to meet up with a bunch of the Poly crew in MagFest. So that we'll all meet up on Wednesday and hang out for 4 straight days. I am very excited. Some of the acts, so MagFest, for anybody who doesn't know, there's a big musical slant rather than how most cons do it. Last year, there was a lot of musical acts that were very well known, Super Guitar Bros, Bit Brigade. This year, there are some lesser, and some people are a little bit peeved about it, I guess, or don't think that they're as good, but I am extremely excited for the 8-bit big band. I think that will be awesome because there's a lot of people on stage. I like big band music, and they have a really good YouTube channel. They might have done an indie song or two, but it's mostly retro 16-bit, 8-bit stuff, but aquatic ambience, stuff like that.
I remember their Yoshi's Island one, and they just do really good music,
so good
covers. So
that's
awesome.
Charlie Rosen, who is I don't even know what it's all called, composer, leader, whatever you want to call him. He won a Grammy, I think, which was crazy. So,
intense.
Yes. So should be very interesting. I'm excited. And of course the arcade. Getting us all together and going playing a bunch of arcade games is always fun. So what's up in your world, Josh?
Just kind of wrapping up my little break. I had a 4-day weekend and I worked a few days, then I had a 3-day weekend. I know it's not something super impressive, but mostly I actually just feel super recharged and refreshed. So that's always a good thing, after Christmas was awesome. I really had one of the best Christmases I've had in a really long time, I would say. It was just basically like pitch perfect Christmas. So that was awesome. And then New Year's, I just feel ready for the new year. I feel like everything's just going to go up this year. I feel like it's going to be a nice positive year. So pretty just generally optimistic, I think, is kind of how I'm feeling right now. So that's good.
Yeah, it's a good spot to be in for sure. And I'm glad you had a dang good Christmas too. That warms my heart.
For sure.
All right, you guys want to kick it off here? What's our game of the year stuff looking like?
All right, we'll get right into it. Don't even let me
Yeah.
take my socks off. All right.
Yeah, I'm just
All
super
right,
excited
folks.
to talk about it, honestly.
So I think we kind of basically the way this is going to work is we have all the categories that I mentioned out earlier. Each of us have selected a game to win that category. None of the other hosts know what our selection is. I think for a couple of these, we could make some educated guesses on what people brought, but it's blind to us. So we'll kind of just go round robin style. We'll reveal our answer, talk a little bit about why we think that is the case, and then we'll close it out with our big shenanigan, the choosing the game of the year. So I'm pumped. First up, our first category, Best Art Direction of 2022. This one was tough for me. I thought long and hard about it, and I think I ultimately landed on Melatonin. Melatonin is my pick for Best Art Direction because that game hangs its hat entirely on vibes.
Yeah.
Like the whole point of that game is to just have a very specific like tone, put you in a specific headspace. And they do a really good job. All the art is extremely consistent. It all has this kind of almost like vapor wavy kind of like purples and blues and stuff. It's a really, I think, cohesive aesthetic, and they do a good job of making like every individual task, unique but still match sort of in line with that. So I went with Melatonin for best art direction.
Makes perfect sense to me. There's all kinds of purple in that game, and
There you go.
we know how Steve likes his purple.
Yeah,
I thought
revealing.
Yeah. My comparison for that art style was very purple, blue, pink, Adventure Time. Like
There
that.
you go.
It's that
Yeah.
cartoon style.
The characters definitely have that look
Yes.
too. And
Yep.
maybe I'm a little bit of a sucker because I did finish watching Adventure Time in 2022 as I finally finished watching the run of that show.
Yep.
Side note, Adventure Time's really good, everyone. You should go watch Adventure Time. Very,
Yep.
especially the back half, the last couple of seasons. My God. So good. But yeah, that's a good pull. It's a good pull. If you're gonna ape any style, I think Adventure Time's a good one to ape from.
Yes.
But all right. Why don't I hand it off here? We'll let Seth, why don't I hand it off to you?
All right. So, my favorite art style, art direction for any indie game that came out in 2022 will go to Tunic.
Solid pick. Yeah.
My runner-up.
Just a gorgeous looking game. And I think I was talking to Steve about it maybe when he was streaming one time. I don't remember what we were saying, but looks very similar to the Link's Awakening remake, that kind of polished toy look to everything. And it just, no matter where you go, like where you venture to in the map, there's just something that's always going to kind of take your breath away. Like one of my favorite things about that game is certainly how the graphics look. And then also I think you get it very early on. I know there's lots of spoilery stuff for Tunic, but the manual is also very cool in the way it looks.
Yeah.
I had Tunic as a runner-up, and the manual might honestly push me over into agreeing with you, because that is, I've never seen anyone be so successfully recapture sort of like a retro aesthetic as they were with that manual. Holy crap, it was so good.
It's not just like it's the fact that it almost looks like a NES manual, but also that it is written in and drawn over and things like that. Like it's just they didn't have to do
awesome.
that. It's just so unique. Something in terms of like art design and style, you don't see it. Like I've never seen that in any other game, obviously, right? So it's wild. So that would be my pick.
Yeah, I would almost dare to say that it almost nails that look better than Link's Awakening did. Like that might be being a little extreme, but I think that probably, yeah.
you could purely because of the way that they use shadows and shading. I think they do a better job than Link's Awakening.
There's also like I don't know what it is about Tunic. It does have that like smooth kind of like toy box vibe to it, but also everything has like a softness to it at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like some shader magic or how they're rendering that world, but it looks it's similar, but it also has a unique look all to its own too. And I think that Tunic, I mean, this is probably true of Melatonin too, but Tunic is the type of game that will. It's kind of like a good Super Nintendo game, where Super Nintendo being the pinnacle of like 2D art ages really well. Like it's just kind of timeless because it was kind of like the peak of that medium. Tunic is basically never going to look bad. Like it's got such a vibe to it that it won't matter how high poly counts get and everything. Like it's always going to look sharp. So that's the mark of good art direction.
Yes.
Good pick.
We compared it to the Link's Awakening remake, but that makes me draw a comparison to Wind Waker, when back in the day everybody was like, this game looks like garbage, but it is way up there, if it's not number one on most people's list, for best looking GameCube game, and it will always look fantastic. So
yeah, we don't need to punish people for the sins of their past, but I'm going to say, if you were back in the day saying Wind Waker looked like garbage, get your head on straight, okay? That game always looked amazing.
Yeah, it did.
Anyways, I digress. Josh, what do you got for us?
I have so many, like, it was hard for me to pick on this one because there's like every game has its own look, so it's kind of like comparing like an 8-bit game to like a really nice realized 3D environment to this and that. So it's hard for me to do what I wanted to do really with this category, but I'm thinking I'm going to kind of go out of left field and go with a game called Proteus. Have you guys heard of this game?
No.
I have not.
So basically this is the game that the reason I'm picking it for best art direction is because it nails what it's going for so well. It's going for like a 90s PC shooter, but not like you're thinking, but like, it's going to look old, but if you think about it, this is what 90s PC shooters look like to us back in the day. You know what I mean? Like when they revitalize an art style. So I just think that what they're going for, they do it so well. The game's really fun too. It's not a super long experience, but I just think that what they're showing here and what they come up with for the art style is basically like that run and gun in your face, explosions everywhere, really awesome like ray trace looking lighting with like colors, and just like it's really in your face, very bombastic. And I think that because of how well it nails that style, that's why I'm giving that art direction push for this game.
It almost reminds me of think Doom, but as pretty as you could possibly make it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. It's like, when people are always doing those, like, this is what Ocarina of Time would look like in Unreal Engine.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like Doom or Quake in one of those situations where it's just like, this is the absolute maximum quality you could possibly have. Yeah, this is a good one. I don't know. Have we ever talked about this game on the show at all? I don't think we have, right?
No, it's just one that I have been fiddled with it and played through it a while back, and I just never came up. So thought this would be a nice game to shout out since it hasn't really been talked about on the show. I think you guys, if you like a classic, maybe I'll bring it for an official pick later on, like you put it on the quest logs down the line. But if you guys are into like a Doom or Quake like retro style shooter like that, I think this is pretty much going to be up your alley. It plays fine with controller too, so I played it on the Steam Deck. So yeah,
Nice.
Yeah, good pick. Did anybody have any runner-ups, any just honorable mentions, shout-outs that they wanted to give there? My only one was Tunic, and Drachma helped me out there. He had my back.
Yeah,
I didn't have an official one, but I really like the art in Beacon Pines, I will say.
It is
nice
really
art.
good. It is quite good. Very.
I'll pick that up on the
painterly.
Steam sale. I'm going to play through that, so we can have a deep conversation about it sometime.
I would love that.
My shout out was just Signalis. It's like a horror, like PS1 era looking game, and I think it's kind of maybe the same idea as Proteus, where it's like it nails what it's going for perfectly. It looks like a PS1 era like horror sci-fi game in a really dark environment, and it uses like really awesome like silhouettes to like, it's like all black, and then there's like just like one little corner that's like this really super detailed room in the corner that you got to go through. And I just feel like it has such a unique, and if you think about the game in your head, it really like, okay, that's what Signalis looks like. It's a very like captivating look to it. So that would be like a shout out I would have for this category.
That's good. And that's high on my list of games I really wish I had gotten around to in 2022, because I'm sure I would love it. So good poll, and I've also heard good things about the art direction. So good pick.
Awesome.
All right, folks. One of my favorite categories coming up here now. We need to award the best indie game soundtrack of the year. This is my category with the most runner-ups because there are so many good soundtracks this year. And I have talked about this in a couple places. My pick for this one is Citizen Sleeper. Ooh. So this soundtrack by someone by the name of, I think it's Amos Roddy or Amos Roddy. I'm not sure how you pronounce the first name, but it is the perfect, like, you want your ideal soundtrack, I think, to be one that without playing the game still reminds you of sort of like the context and the situation that the game takes place in. And Citizen Sleepers is literally the like lo-fi synth electronic soundtrack to an abandoned space station. Like it's music that sounds like an abandoned space station. It's got like a perfect blend of like really like kind of like low key background tracks that are like good but like relaxing and kind of fall into the background of what you're doing. Then it's got a number of like really good standouts that are like high energy, a lot of very like tense music that like put you on edge during the like important scenes, which considering the game is all dialogue, the music does a lot of heavy lifting to get you there.
Mm-hmm.
It also is just the soundtrack that I've listened to the most like while working and stuff this year, which I think is a pretty good tell as to which soundtrack you like the most. What's the one that you flip to when you got a little bit of downtime in your job. So that is my pick.
Yeah, that makes sense. I
Yeah.
had guessed that you would bring Citizen Sleeper, either that or one other game, which I assume will be one of your runner-ups. But I remember you gave it high praise on the episode that you brought it to for IQ, so makes sense to me.
That's true. Yeah. I didn't know what you were going to pick. I actually think that's probably the only song that I've listened to from the soundtrack, so to be honest. So that's putting it more on my radar to go listen to now. So that's cool.
Check it out for sure, for sure. Anyways, Drachma, do you want me to tell everyone what your best indie soundtrack is, or would you prefer to say it yourself?
Go ahead, Steve.
Drachma's best indie soundtrack, Beacon Pines. Congratulations, Beacon Pines. Why don't you tell us why you picked Beacon Pines?
In a very similar vein to what Steve said about Citizen Sleeper, I listened to the entirety of Beacon Pine's soundtrack Monday through Friday, every single day. I usually don't repeat it. Like, I'm not like, okay, we got to the end of the hour, flip it over and do it again. Like, I'm not doing that, but I will listen to that full hour at some point throughout my day. And usually it's because I'm getting distracted by other things. I need to focus on something. I'll just put that on, and it's like everything around me just goes away. It's the perfect studying, working soundtrack. Just every single song to me is a banger. I know that soundtrack from start to finish now. So much great piano, really great strings. I, of course, have talked about Heart to Heart, the song, at length, just because of the transition mid-song that it does. But the entire soundtrack is amazing and is probably way up there for favorite soundtracks of all time. Certainly of 2022. So, as most people probably had guessed if they had heard how much I clamored about that game and the soundtrack, and even when Steve talked about it, Beacon Pines is my favorite indie soundtrack of 2022.
Good pick.
Awesome.
Good pick. Yeah, I would also, I would give a special, more specific honorable mention award here to Beacon Pines for the best use of a song during a particular scene. The moment in the game where Heart to Heart appears lines up to the action so perfectly. They become greater than the sum of their parts.
Yes. There are only so many songs that actually give me goosebumps. Heart to Heart is one of them, and it happens regularly when I listen to it. It's just probably because of how I associate it with the game, because I understand what happened in the game at that point, but it's just the transition. If anybody hasn't listened to that, I will bring it. I have not brought it yet to an IQ OSD. Whenever we get around to one, I will try to shoehorn it in somehow, even if it has nothing to do with it. I'll be like, well, this is what makes me think of the blazing summer heat, or some whatever
we do. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Nice. That's a really good pick. I feel like the tracks I have heard are all tracks you've sent. So
yeah.
Every time I do hear a song from this, it's like, yeah, this is killer. So
for sure,
it's all the pick.
So Josh, what's your favorite soundtrack for 2022?
I think it's because it's kind of been. So the reason I picked my soundtrack of the year isn't really because it's like the best soundtrack I've ever heard in my entire life or like anything like that. It's because it's kind of like a constant presence in my life. It's the Vampire Survivors OST, because every time I think of like a downtime, and then the past like 3 months, it's music from that soundtrack. So, and then the songs are all earworms. They're just really well composed, and you're sitting there for 30-minute sessions listening to, a looping soundtrack of 2 to 3 minute music. It has to be good. So every time I open up a new stage, that's always like a really fun thing to just, because they actually have like a music track like picker for what your run. So if you like a certain song more, you can go to it. So I kind of like thumb through and listen to some of the tracks and then pick a different song. And it's just like, good, like energetic music that's really listenable, and it just sticks in my head. So that's definitely, I just, as soon as I thought about that category, that's the one that kept coming to my head. So I'm like, yep, solid. That's it.
It is real. The bits I've listened of it, because it's been, a very popular game this year, even in the Discord too. I've listened to some of the songs just while watching gameplay and stuff. It's very Castlevania is what it
Yes,
reminds
it
me
is.
of.
Mm-hmm.
And anything, like, I don't care if you rip off Castlevania, like, that's awesome music, so go for it. Like,
right? Yeah,
I get it.
It's a very specific style, but like, it's one of those, like, I guess it's when you spend a good amount of time with a game, you kind of get that music is part of the experience and part of your memory of it. Like, if I think of like any game I go back to, yeah. So that's Vampire Survivors' favorite soundtrack of the year.
Nice.
Very catchy as well. So good pick. Good pick. All right, folks. All right. So that brings us around to our favorite IndieQuest moment of 2022. Now, technically our question said favorite IndieQuest moments, plural. So if you brought more than one, I think that you win on technicality here, and that's fair. But in the spirit of the other questions, I did bring a singular one with runner-ups.
Okay.
And this one, I'm interested to see what everybody picks for this one. I suspect maybe my runner-ups will show up for you guys. But my personal pick, I think this is an obvious one. Kind of spread the love a little bit. Let's bring it on our boy, Captain Drachma. I mean, come on. Come on, the man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah, it's been great having you on the show. Like, you bring a really specific voice, and I just like talking to you. So, yeah, hell yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, we needed a strong man, all right? We needed two big biceps on this show.
Pretty much.
I truly appreciate it. And hilariously, my favorite moment is not getting Drachma on the show. I wasn't like pumping up my ego. But my favorite moment was coming on IQ and just sticking around. It's been a blast. I've gotten so used to getting excited, not only just coming on here whenever we record, but also shooting you guys a message in the morning on Mondays when we record, or shooting you a message over the weekend just to chat with you guys before we come on, make sure we're squared away. But it's just, I don't know, it has become such a part of my life at this point, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's great. I appreciate it.
Very much the early days of the show. Well, great. You should go listen to the whole back catalog, people.
Right.
You know what? You can almost think of them as like the prototype before we finally reached our final form. All right, where by our powers combined, all three of us, we make the ideal IndieQuest.
Captain Drachma.
Smash announcer.
Captain Planet. Never mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Captain Planet. That's where you're going.
That's what. I was like, woo, but that's okay.
So yeah, make sure you. Basically, this is just all designed to guilt you into sticking around during all of 2023. Okay?
I'll see about it. We'll see. But
okay. He's not committing to anything, but he's going to be here at least for a few more episodes. We'll say that.
I'm
just kidding.
I do have two others. I did not categorize mine as like honorable mentions, but we can go back around if we want to. So, Josh, what's your favorite moment?
It does tie into you coming on the show. I think that our review of To the Moon is probably the most memorable moment. I feel like we really found the flow of us three talking the most when we're doing that review. I feel like you guys have this banter, and then I feel like I fit in here and there, and I think it's just when we did that episode, it gelled for the first time. This is the new show, you know what I mean? So I think to me that really resonated with me a lot. I'm like, damn, this is awesome to have this guy here. I feel like we're actually really vibing. So that's what the show is all about. So yeah, that's my favorite moment.
Yeah, that's a great moment. That's actually number 3 on my list. Not that I ordered them in any way, but To the Moon, Finding Paradise reviews are two of my favorite episodes that we have done. They were just awesome, and having that spoiler section that is probably mostly for us only, I don't care. It's just it's great. It's so much fun. So
It's just a little bit of a breakdown, a little bit of a processing session together. I like doing those a lot. So that was in my runner-ups as well. I have another one in my runner-ups. I wonder if this is your number 2. For me, I put our interview with Jamie Bateman for
hell yeah.
Archvale.
Mm-hmm.
For a couple of reasons. One, it's a game that I didn't really know anything about until, Seth started pushing me to play it. And when I did check it out, it instantly became a game that I really liked. And then on top of that, Jamie was like the ideal guest. Very excited, tons of interesting stories, information, anecdotes, very enthusiastic, matched the very positive vibe of the show perfectly. When we got done, we were like, damn, if only they could all be that easy or go that smoothly. Wow, it was a real treat, and I was very happy that we had the opportunity to do that interview.
Yeah, he was like the 4th secret guest we never knew till we talked to him. I mean, like fourth host, He he just had the same like cadence as we do, which I love asking him questions because it's nice to have an interview where you ask not that many questions and they have a lot to say, and he was one of them, so that's awesome.
Yeah, and exactly, all your guys' points is what I was thinking as well. That was the first time that I had ever done an official interview on a podcast of this kind, right? Or I've never done a podcast, but like I've done some interview type things for work, but nothing like that. And I was a little bit nervous. You guys had done a couple interviews on IndieQuest before, but Jamie just made it so easy. Like there was no nerves necessary because you just fire off the question and listen to Jamie talk, and everything gelled perfectly. We went back and forth, and it's almost like we didn't even need questions. We needed like 3 questions and then just like, let's go, it was so great. So,
yeah. And a great game too. You all should go check out Archvale. I think it's no longer on Game Pass, but it's probably still on Steam. You can go check it out there, I'd have to imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
It's good stuff. Awesome. Any other runner-ups? Josh, did you have any others that you wanted to drop in?
I don't know. I just think that I do look forward to this show every week, so I guess that's my highlight. I guess that's not really a highlight. That's a cop-out. I don't know. I always have a good time. I just always look forward to what you guys are going to bring and to hear your insight or thoughts or opinions on what I bring, or, just catch up a little bit, whatever. Talk about caffeine. Oh, that's probably a highlight. Talking about caffeine. Yeah.
Caffeine talk. Yeah. There you go.
We do that quite a bit. I got to say, my favorite micro moment is every single time we record, the anticipation, that moment of holding your breath before you get to learn what somebody brought to the show.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like every time it's like I'm about to get in on a little secret. I'm very excited, and it's and it builds up until right before we talk about stuff. So I appreciate the sort of like behind the curtain until the dramatic reveal structure of the show. It makes it more interesting, and it builds my excitement every time.
It allows us to have our own little form of improv, I think, because then we're off the cuff. We can't prepare for that. We just have to Google a couple screenshots and like, let's go. I love that. It's really fun. So
maybe not really like it's pertinent. Maybe like add a secret 4th category. Like, what are you looking forward to in this, like the future for the show? Like, do you want to do more interviews? Do more game reviews? Like, I'm excited to see what else we do with the show, like going forward. Like, it's fun to plan little new things, to do.
Yeah.
I mean, yes. Honestly, my favorite 2 types of episodes that we do are weird. I'm not trying to knock our regular episodes. Building the quest log is important, and I do
right. Yeah.
And I do want you all to learn about cool games. But my favorite episodes are either the OST episodes, because those are the most laid back, the most chill. I love game music, so it's a good opportunity for me to learn about stuff from the 2 of you. And they're just always, very fluid in conversation and stuff. And then I also really love the revisiting, the second opinion episodes. Those are like the cubed version of that anticipation. Where I'm like, oh man, now I really want to know what this person brought. And it's good to have an opportunity to go back and look at stuff we already talked about, because a lot of shows don't do that, right? You don't have a chance to look backwards when there's so much to look forwards towards.
I am personally, like you were saying, Steve, I love the fact that we have some spin-off like episodes, and I understand why other podcasts do things like this, or TV shows and things like that, because it breaks up. Not to say that our typical episodes are monotonous, but it almost is like that work feel in a way. Not it's fun. It's fun work, but it's a pattern, right? But when we throw one of those extra episodes in there, it spins it up just enough that it like everything is renewed. And then I'm so happy to go back and play a game and share that again. So I think our vibe, our fluidity that we have works really well.
Yeah, the secret sauce of the show is to do the fun off episodes. I feel like it brings a different energy. Like, yeah, I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts that are very formulaic. They do the news and then they do emails or whatever. You know, we do something like that, but we do the picks and then here's some music. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Oh, we played a game. We want to talk about a game, just the whole episode. Why not? Oh, we're talking to this interviewer, developer, whatever, and just talking about some cool game that we experienced or how they came up with this game. Awesome. So I like that. It can be varied like that for sure.
So at the end of the day, for everyone listening, our favorite IQ moments were every episode we ever did in 2022.
That's true. I should probably cut us off because we will literally reach that point if we don't move
I feel
on
like
to
we're
the
getting
next
there.
category. All right, fair. Thank you, Seth, for keeping us honest. All right, our next category, indiest indie game of 2022. This was intentionally left a little bit vague, a little bit up to interpretation. It's kind of a look inward and determine for yourself what's the indiest indie game you played in 2022. And my answer for this one is a little game called The Looker. So,
that's a good one. Yep.
The Looker, for anyone that's not aware, is a parody of an indie game. It is a parody of The Witness, but in and of itself is a fully designed game. It doesn't just copy the mechanics of The Witness to make some jokes. It literally builds on the ideas of The Witness with the game's sort of own signature style, and then uses those fun new mechanics it has in order to tell some jokes and poke at The Witness a little bit.
Yes.
But it ticks a lot of boxes for indiest indie game. One, it is developed by a single person, Bradley Lovell. Two, it is a parody of an indie game, right? It is an indie game within an indie game.
Yep.
Three, it was free to download. It was truly just hey, here you go. I made this fun little thing and I want everybody to play it. And then if you're stretching it, four, it's also kind of pretty short. It's a couple hours long. So it is funny, the idea of someone riffing on The Witness, but I do want to point people to it and say, it's also worth checking out and playing. Now, you should play The Witness first. Right, you're not going to have context or appreciate The Looker nearly as much, but I'm a Witness super fan. I love the game quite a bit. It was one of my favorite games of the decade. And so seeing The Looker do its own thing here with The Witness, I was quite happy.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, having your 1 point of an indie game made purely because of another indie game makes it pretty indie. So
yeah,
that makes sense.
You probably answered it better than we're going to.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Honestly, that's probably the best answer that we're going to get.
Yeah. But I'm curious, Drachma, what was your pick?
So I have two answers, and they are on very opposite ends of the spectrum. And I wouldn't even call one a runner-up, so I'm just going to go through both of them. My first one will be maybe a little bit of a short explanation. I brought a game called Gaballer pretty early on in my tenure. Very cheap, a couple bucks on Steam. And I think you basically have to get it on Steam because it's a mouse game, right? So you have to play it on PC. You might be able to get an itch. But very simple, made by an extremely small team. You can beat the whole thing in less than an hour. You just move your mouse around and try to get the things that are good and avoid the things that are bad. I mean, just a very simple concept, but super fun. I would recommend it to anybody who is looking to play something with their mouse, just a pure mouse game. As long as you have that potential, you have the possibility of playing a game like that, I highly recommend playing Gaballer, even though it is very small and very indie, in my opinion.
That's a good answer.
Yeah,
because
I like it.
That one of the things I think of for indie games is having one idea and seeing how much you can iterate and build on that idea, right? And that Gaballer is very much the definition of hey, we had this was our one sentence description of the game, how we wanted it to play. Let's see how much creativity we can kind of fit in that box. And then when we feel like we've kind of mined ourselves of all these ideas, let's just release it to the world and see how people appreciate it. So
Yes.
I think that's a good pick.
Yep.
Awesome.
My second indiest indie game, which is, I believe, tied with Gaballer for indiest, is almost anti-Gaballer. It's so weird, and it's not because of how the gameplay is, because the gameplay is like a lot of other games, and the studio that made this game has made other games. It's because of the distribution method, and this might give a hint to the two of you. I'm going to put it because it's on the back of my desk.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I had the whole thing, because the game, Demon Throttle, comes... Well, this is a special edition distributed by Special Reserve, because it's a Devolver published game. And it came in a nice packaging. It's got a manual, like a full, like, Tunic-like manual inside
Awesome.
the case. The reason I am giving it to Demon Throttle is basically like an NES looking and sounding. It's very unique. I hope to bring it to an episode in the future. Top-down shoot 'em up, kind of similar to games like Ikari Warriors. The one I grew up with, which is a terrible game, was Dino Ricky. It really reminds me of Dino Ricky on the NES, if anybody knows what that is. So the gameplay itself isn't super indie or anything. It's almost more retro than anything. But like I said, the distribution method, you cannot buy this game physically. Or, sorry, flip that, reverse it, digitally. You can only buy it physically, which is very unique.
Interesting.
You cannot find this game on any store. You can only buy it.
I did not realize this, and it's a Devolver published game.
Yes.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah,
that is
I like that.
So
fascinating.
Yes, it goes in such a crazy reverse direction. Indie games came into being because of the digital marketplace, because these these indie developers could not pay to put their games into the physical media, right? Like, they couldn't afford the CDs, they couldn't afford the carts, so they went away from that and just put it online. Demon Throttle tries to capture the market in a completely different way. It is purely aimed towards collectors, which is almost, the fact that it's only physical is something that no AAA game would ever do anymore.
True.
No way.
Yeah.
So that's why I almost think that it's even more indie nowadays in 2022 versus 2007 to have a physical only release. And they say that it will only ever be physical. So not so much because of how the game plays, but because of how it was just distributed. I'm giving it my second indiest indie game of 2022.
I like that. I can see the reasoning on both angles for your picks there. Yeah.
So, Josh, what's your indiest indie game?
There's a game I've been following for a long time. So the thing I was thinking of for this is a game developed and like basically promoted or whatever by one person. And this game is created by one person, promoted by one person. He eventually found publishers for the game. It is Grapple Dog. Have you guys seen anything from Grapple Dog before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
the guy Joseph Gribben, he's been posting about this game for a couple of years, his development, his processes of how to do it, like what he went through, and pretty much to me that's fascinating to watch a game kind of get built and then finally be able to play it, see like the in progress work as it's going through. So to me it's one of those I'd like to shout the game out too. It's a really solid little platformer. You play a dog named Pablo that has a grapple hook. Chaos ensues, and yeah, it's a pretty cool little platformer. I wouldn't say anything like super crazy or unique, but it does take the genre and runs with it, and it's a good little time. So yeah, when I thought indie games, I thought a game that I just been kind of following since like the beginning, or like for a good amount of time.
Right.
That's how I was looking at it.
Yeah,
so
that's cool. It looks kind of like bionic, like a cutesy bionic commando or something like that, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Cool.
A lot of modern indie development is, or I get maybe it should be in terms of like marketing at least,
Right.
sort of showing the process the whole way through, right? Like showing it from prototype as it's being developed to release. And so I think in terms of like what indie kind of by under the constraints of capitalism has to mean in 2022, that's a good pick.
Yes.
Yeah. I like the game too, and it's one of those that I think the reason I started following the account, it's a very gifable game because of the art style and how cutesy it is. It looks fun to play just from seeing like a 5-second clip. And yeah, so I followed it, and then I started. I think that seems like a good developer, like receptive to criticism and things. And I do think it's just one of those that it's his first game, and I wanted to just shout it out too. So there you go.
Awesome.
Heck yeah. All right, all good picks. Any honorable mentions? Any runner-ups anybody wants to shout out here for this one?
Nope, I got mine too.
I can't really. Yeah, I can't really think of. I couldn't think of very many for this one. It was so like open for interpretation. So.
Well, those are your indiest indie games of 2022. All right, our next category: best indie game you played for the first time in 2022. This is another one where I think the spirit of the question was not a 2022 game, but it was phrased in such a way where if you picked a 2022 game, fair play. We didn't exclude that.
You're gonna do that, aren't you?
Oh no. I thought about it. I do like being contrarian.
Yeah.
But my best indie game, maybe it needs 2 awards just to really cement itself. But no. In terms of my best non-2022 indie game that I played this year, I got to give it to... Actually, I'm curious. We've talked about it on the show. I wonder if either of you have a guess as to what I'm going to bring.
To the Moon.
Well, he's played... Oh, Finding Paradise.
Finding Paradise, yeah. So Finding Paradise?
Yeah, because he's played To the Moon before.
Close. Finding Paradise is a run-up for me. I'm giving it to Titan Souls.
Oh,
yeah. There you go.
Dude, the greatest insult of this show is Drachma bringing this and side questing it before I had the chance to play it. Titan Souls slaps. It slaps so hard. Name one bad part about Titan Souls, you can't do it.
You smack your head against the stairs every time you try to roll up them, and
that
that's
is the
terrible.
one bad part about Titan Souls. If only they had patched that. But yeah, I mean, Titan Souls is kind of everything. It's basically, what do you get if you literally take Super Meat Boy and Shadow the Colossus and find the exact Venn diagram midpoint? So like, you can't really pander to me any harder than that. You're basically 100% going to produce a game that I'm going to love. I almost did give it to Finding Paradise because I think combined with our conversations on the show, it really was one that was meaningful to me this year. But I can't deny the fact that when I played Titan Souls, I immediately played it like 5 times in a row. And granted, I was trophy motivated, of course, but it has to take a special game for me to grind multiple playthroughs on hard mode, on permadeath mode, all sorts of stuff to try to unlock everything. And I was like gobbling it up the whole time. I couldn't get enough.
In fairness to me, and I guess this is a question for you, Steve, if I hadn't brought it and then talked about it and then said you would like this game, do you think you would have played it this year?
No, I wouldn't have. So it is like a chicken or the egg thing.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
It's like we had to allow Drachma to do what he did in order to bring it. But I do appreciate you bringing it and getting the enthusiasm up for it, because it's one that had long lingered in my to-do list. And it's always nice when I have one of those games that I've been meaning to get around to for a long time get yanked up by one of the two of you to be like, yo, I'm really playing and enjoying this, or hey, I'm going to tell you a lot about this. I really get I really got to get around to that, and I really should play that. So loved my time with it.
It is very much an example of a game that I put on the side quest that, looking back, I'm more nostalgic for, even though I only played it 6 months ago or a little bit more than that. Like, I could see it going both ways, and I said as much then. But it's also an example of a game where I brought it and I'm a little bit on the fence, but Steve is like, what are you talking about? That is like just such a great game. And I assume Steve would totally put it on the main quest if he ever brought it, right? So our opinions are only opinions, right? At the end of the day, we all have different experiences. So
this is the beauty of having multiple hosts. You can get multiple perspectives on a game, and inevitably your tastes are going to align more with one of ours than the other two. So just learn to ignore Drachma and Frantic and only listen to what I have to say. That's my advice. Anyways, Drachma, what's your favorite non-2022 indie game?
So following in a similar vein, I actually picked a game that was also developed by Acid Nerve, and anybody who has listened to this podcast for any length of time probably knew which one I was going to bring, because it is also my new favorite game of all time, and that is Death's Door. Amazing.
That was a little bit of a given. Yeah.
Just masterpiece of a game. I am already disappointed that when we do our 2023 indie games of the year that I won't be able to bring it next year because I didn't play it next year. It's just that good. Maybe I'll try to shoehorn it in there somehow, but
Deluxe edition.
Yeah. I can't wait for hopefully you guys to experience it someday. I want anyone to play it and shoot an email to the show and talk to me about it, because it's just that good. And maybe it was just right time, right place, but I think that everything that game does appeals to me in some way. I am a massive Zelda fan. I'm a massive Dark Souls fan, and it's a really cool mashup combat-wise of those two games, and exploration-wise in terms of the Dark Souls stuff. Lots of cool shortcuts, awesome bosses, great sense of humor. So, yes, I'm definitely going to have to give it to Death's Door.
I gotta say, I'm not going to give away any future categories here, but as someone who has been quite enjoying isometric Zelda-style games with Dark Souls influence lately, Death's Door is, it's looking more and more appealing. It
should, buddy. It should. Play that thing when you get a chance. That's all I'm saying. So, Josh, what was your favorite, preferably non-2022 indie game that you played this year?
I'm gonna do an answer. Hopefully it doesn't sound like a cop-out answer, but mine is Finding Paradise.
That's fine with me.
No.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I was actually going between To the Moon and Finding Paradise, because I feel like being in the universe of Freebird games now, finding out about these characters and the intrigue is really cool to see it between the two games. And I just liked talking about the game, just like point to point to point to point, because it's such a unique game. There's literally nothing quite like those two games, especially Finding Paradise. And being able to have that experience for the first time, and then like deep dive into how I'm feeling about it and how we're feeling about it, it's just like kind of really heightened my experience for that game specifically. And like it's just a really creative story, and it's a really heartfelt story, and it really, like, I felt it a lot. I really related to that storyline a little bit more than To the Moon, I would say. So that definitely rests on my opinion here. But yeah, I just thought it was such a good idea to continue on with that story as a group and talk about it. And we're going to do that, the rest of it, and we're going to play the last game pretty soon too, probably. So, yeah.
Yes. That's excellent. I didn't put it on my list, but was always those two. It's tough. I think I like To the Moon a little bit more, as I talked about on the Finding Paradise episode, but they're two of my top 5 favorite indie games, certainly. 2 of the favorite games that I played all year long. Like, excellent games, and definitely deserve a runner-up for me. If it wasn't for Death's Door, I probably would have picked one of them. So
yeah, they're like the video game equivalent of a good book. You start one of the games, and they're actually probably the length of a good book too, right? Like a few hours. So it's like you just start one of those games, you cannot stop. You want to see what happens next. You want to see the conclusion. You want to get that emotional punch. And doing that with this game was nice. It was just one evening. I sat down and played through the whole thing and just loved every minute of it. So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I have to say, if we're factoring in the show into the equation, that makes a really compelling case for Finding Paradise, because when we did the To the Moon episode, it was fun because we were coming in from different places, right? We had people on the show that had never played the game before. We had experience playing it a long time ago, revisiting it, stuff like that. But Finding Paradise, we kind of all were on the same page, and we were all very enthusiastic about the franchise now. Yes. So it's not often that you can go into like the structure of our show, you know, kind of like Indie Game Book Club, and already knowing everyone is basically guaranteed to love this book, yes, and just get pumped ahead of even playing it to talk about it. So I think that was a really good episode. Y'all should go back and listen to the Finding Paradise review super show breakdown, and also do that for the To the Moon one. 2 good eps.
Yeah,
sure.
Play the games and listen to the podcast. Like, I think they're a good follow-up. I feel like we're like the Talking Dead of the Freebird games right now. So yeah.
I hope that someone out there will go play the games. Spoiler tag your email, but send it in, and we'll tell everybody to stop listening if they haven't played the game yet, because we could probably go on for another 10 minutes at the end of an episode talking about those games. So.
It's true. All right. Maybe I should move us along then. We get to one of our 2 big kahunas here. We have our final sort of round robin question before we get into the show's Game of the Year discussion. We have our personal best indie game released in 2022. Now, it's a little unfair for me. Everybody who knows me knows I have an annual tradition of building my Game of the Year list live on Twitch. I do it every year. I love the process of I like airing the dirty laundry for people. I like people to see the struggle. And I think it's a little more fun with an audience. So you both probably already know what this is.
Yep.
My indie game of the year and my game of the year overall for 2022 was Tunic. And I'll speak just a little bit to why I think Tunic is special. We talked about it in Art Direction about the manual. But I am a physical game collector. I mean, it is something that I have done for a long time and will do for a long time. I appreciate the physicality of games. Being able to look at screenshots on the back, flip through the manual, all that stuff. And that is a component of games that has sort of, fallen off as digital takes over and as production costs, like they try to trim everything they can. Manuals disappeared. And at this point, most of the time your physical copies, even though I still buy them, are basically just like a download key. They're basically just DRM for you to download the game. Yep. But Tunic is the first game I've ever seen to recapture what makes physical games special in a digital game. The way that they incorporated this in-game manual for you to flip through and like sort of, and I think importantly, the way that the manual is in a language that you mostly can't understand makes it calls back to that feeling of like being in the back of your parents' car and you just rented a game from Blockbuster, or you just bought a pre-owned game from Funkoland or something. And you're flipping through the manual just because you're so excited to get home and play it. And you're seeing like these scribble like notes and things that people have drawn in the margins of this manual. And you flip to the notes page and you see random stuff and you're like, is this a password for the game? Is this information I'm going to need? And they take that and turn it into like a central mechanic of the game and like your main tool for learning about the world. In Tunic, you'll have situations where there's no real in-game indicator other than the in-game manual will have like literal ballpoint pen with like a little circle and a question mark. Like the person before you was like, what's going on here? Although sometimes if you really pay attention, those spots that you go check out also do have very, very subtle visual cues that you could have found without the manual too. So they aren't fully leading on that, but yeah, I think that makes Tunic a very special game. And then on top of that, soundtrack is incredible. Visually, it's incredible. I think the combat, you could maybe argue it's the weakest part, but it's still extremely fun. Yeah. And there's so many additional layers that I can't even really get into right now because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody about like you keep learning as you play Tunic, and it keeps kind of like changing your perspective on what you're looking at. The Tunic that you're looking at the end of the game is very different from the Tunic you see at the start of the game. And I think that is a very difficult thing to do. And a lot of my favorite games do that. Outer Wilds does a version of that. The Witness definitely does that. I'm very much a mark for that type of thing. So Tunic is a very special game. It's very good. It's definitely better than Death's Door, and that's my. I'm just kidding. I just like to give Drachma crap, but Tunic is very good, and it is definitely my pick for 2022.
Awesome. I think Tunic's a fantastic game. It's like one of those one that's itching in the back of my mind to go back to. Like I'm like, I got to go back to this. I think I'm just gonna get it on Steam, play it on Steam Deck. I think that'll work best for me. And only played it a little bit on Xbox, so I'm like, I kind of like dip my toe in the water. I'm like, okay, I kind of get what this is, but maybe I don't know what this is. By the end of the game, it's completely different. So maybe I should see that through. I definitely need to get back to it.
Yeah, Tunic's the only game this year that released in 2022 that I willingly played 2 different times, several months apart. And my second playthrough of Tunic was 1, like a third the length, and 2, very different from my first playthrough. So I thought it was cool in that way. Anyway, sorry, Seth, go ahead.
No, all I was going to say is I decided it was on sale. So I recently picked up Tunic, which is why it's on. I could have picked it anyway by looking at screenshots and picked for art design, right? But I wanted to at least get some experience with it. And I was giving our old pal Steve a hard time a little bit back and forth on Tunic while I'm playing it. Because I'm just like, it's like it's trying to be Death's Door, but it sucks at it. I don't. Oh my God. But I will say that prior to this episode, I was still playing it. I am about 8 hours in now. And if anyone is listening and has tried Tunic but bounced off it after an hour or two, I recommend sticking it out because it does get better. It's that kind of game. And I'm not like giving it a pass for that, because I think that can be a little annoying and put off some people, that it just takes a certain period of time for a game to get quote unquote good. I'm not saying Tunic isn't good at the beginning. It is. But it really starts revving up after about 4 or 5 hours. That's when it really starts hitting its stride and everything starts making sense. You finally get accustomed to the combat. You finally understand what all this stuff is. Like, right? You're starting to get it. So I will say, Steve, I take back some of my comments because I agree that it is a pretty darn good game. I haven't finished it yet, but before I give my game of the year, I would probably say that Tunic is my runner-up for game of the year for 2022.
Yeah,
I
and
appreciate that.
I'll say that's a runner-up for me because I haven't played as much as I would have liked it, so I didn't even bring it. So I was like, I know it's a good game. It's just I haven't played or experienced it myself, so that's why it's not on my list. So,
yep, for sure.
Heck yeah. Well, everyone, go play it. But that's not the only great indie game that came out this year. Drachma, what is your pick?
I assume most people will know what this pick is too. I have a little story, I guess. We've spoken about it before, how games are all about your life experiences, right? Lots of things are based off of what you've played before, how your life has been in the past, if you've suffered hardships and things like that. So my indie game of 2022 is Beacon Pines. And
Nice.
Yes, I mean, art style and music, great stuff, right? But prior to coming on IndieQuest, I would have bounced off Beacon Pines very quickly. Very quickly.
Interesting.
I wouldn't have. It's not my kind of game. I mean, everyone listening knows how much I like Death's Door. Beacon Pines is very not Death's Door.
Maybe the opposite video game. Like
Exactly.
if you look on one side of the spectrum, you get your Enter the Gungeons and your Death's Doors. Beacon Pines is like the antithesis of those.
Yes. I will say Death's Door has an excellent story, but that's not the focus. Beacon Pines, that's all it is. You're playing a book, right? And I can understand why a lot of people maybe wouldn't call this their game of the year purely because of that fact. Because at the end of the day, how much of a video game is it? And I totally get those sentiments if people think that, but I still will stand by and say, go play this game if you haven't, especially and in my own personal life experiences, if you have suffered loss, specifically potentially the loss of a parent. I lost my mom 10 years ago, and that really, really hits home if you've had that kind of experience. You learn very early on that Luca had lost his dad and mom very suddenly, and you kind of, that's almost like a side story from the true story. But at the end of it, it's like that is the glue that holds the story together, right? That background for Luca. And by the end, the real resolution is stuff about that, which is, I don't know, it's beautiful to me, right? So before I drone on and on and on about it again, that is why Beacon Pines is my 2022 game of the year. It's a beautiful game. So
awesome. I'm like, you have sold it to me many, many times. That's probably your biggest endorsement. So it's like, I'm already had I'm going to buy it and download it this week probably and start getting into it because it sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah. I'd love to hear about it. Yep.
You both do this to me quite a bit, but something about this year in particular, maybe I have a soft spot because you're the new host, Drachma, but you did a good job in games that you brought to the show. In like, your enthusiasm is very contagious, and several times I've been like, damn, I gotta go play that game. And then in most of those instances I've been like, damn, he's right, that game is really good. so I appreciate you finding and bringing these things, and you having the energy to get me jazzed about playing them too.
Yeah, I mean, I just get excited. I can go and talk to my wife about it. That's why I love having this mic in front of my face now, because like so often I'm excited about these things. I'm like, oh, it's so cool, and this is why. And she's like, uh-huh. But here it's like you guys are like, yeah, tell me more.
Yeah.
I love it
about this thing.
I need to know.
Yep, for sure. So, Josh, what's your game of the year?
Oh, game of the year. It is going to be a little game called Vampire Survivors. Yeah, nice. I mean, this might be obvious because I talk about it quite a bit. It's the most video game that you can play. It's literally a slot machine with a joystick. It's basically tickling every ADHD tendency I have all at the same time while making me zeroed in and focused on this crazy cacophony of weapons exploding around me. To me, it's just a perfect game for just 30 minutes. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to have a bunch of things happen on the screen and level up my guy a certain way to try to get this specific achievement. I'm an achievement guy in this game now because it has all these achievements to get. So it's like, maybe on this run I can level up this weapon a specific way and get this achievement, And yeah, it's if you guys have probably seen the gifs of it, like incomprehensible. Once you get to like that 25 minute and you have everything leveled up, you can't see what's going on. It's just a mess of nothing and you feel like a god. So yeah, it's literally taking the best parts of like a video game and just boiling it down to something so simple as just walking around and leveling a guy up. So yeah, Vampire Survivors. Yeah. When I think 2022 in indie games, that one's going to be the first one I think about. So that's why I picked it.
I think a lot of people probably think 2022 and Vampire Survivors hand in hand. Honestly, the fact that I haven't played it yet is kind of crazy because I've seen it sitting, it's regularly on sale, and even at full price, it's like what, $4 or something like that, $3.
Yeah, it's like a $5 game.
Yeah, it's like nothing. I think that the reason I know that I will love that game, the entire reason that I haven't played it is because I'm like, how much of my life is that thing going to suck away as soon as I
it's
download
gonna suck
it?
A lot. Trust me. Like, I think I'm at 25 hours, and I'm probably at like 2/3 of the achievements. I haven't even got everything yet. It's just kind of like some of it is a luck game. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those. It's like, oh yeah, I got time for 30 more minutes. It's just 30 minutes, and then you do 5 of those, and then that's your evening. So yeah, it's very much that type of game.
Yes, heaven have mercy if they ever release a PlayStation version where I can hunt down trophies on it, because then it's over for me.
I'm sure it'll happen eventually. Yeah,
I know. It definitely seems like an awesome game, and I just like you, Drachma, I know as soon as I start playing it, I'll instantly get addicted. Some games you just look at and you're like, oh yeah, I'm a mark for that. That'll work for me just fine. So I had to find the right time to dip my toes in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. This is the winner, but do you guys have any runner-ups that were close or almost made the cut for your best indie game? So for me, if we're looking at my actual top 10 list, not just indie games, it just so happens that my top 3 were all indie games. My number 2 was Neon White, and my number 3 was Citizen Sleeper, which we mentioned before. Yep. All incredible games, all very stylish. Also 3 banger soundtracks. So it's been a good year for indie game music and a damn good year for indie games.
Yes. I don't have any specific others other than the 2 that were already mentioned. My goal, here's another goal for you guys. My goal for 2023 is to play as many, I will say top billing, or however you want to call it, recognized good by the general public indie games as I can. Because I want to flesh it out, because I think that will make this episode more interesting, right? So.
Yeah. I want to. My goal of 2023 is just to play more games generally, because I feel like it's been a couple of years where I haven't played as many games as I usually have. So maybe this is a year. I think it will be. So, yeah,
for sure.
I didn't have any other like ones that I would probably pick as like game of the year right now, but I have a couple I want to shout out just because I'm having a great time, or I have had a good time with them. Lunistis, I think that if you're into Sonic, like Sonic Adventure, check it out. It's pretty much nails what you imagine a modern one of those being. And then another game called Arcade Paradise. I don't know if you guys have heard of this game. Basically you inherit a laundromat, and in the back there are arcade machines that you have to basically slowly get more money from the laundromat and the arcade machines and build this arcade in the back of this, laundromat. And you're doing laundry in there. You're actually playing. Each arcade machine that you buy is an actual game you can play. And some of them are really long and very detailed. And so basically you're running this little arcade machine. You can play the game, do some laundry, make some money, then go back. Oh, and your watch will go off like, oh, the watch needs to be done. So you jump off the arcade game, go over and do that a little bit. It's a really fun little management game, but I think the little arcade games they have in the game itself are actually really fun games to play. Like, they're very entertaining. They're kind of takes on like Pac-Man and old arcade games. So yeah. So that's a solid number. I would say that would be like a number 2 or 3 like indie game of the year for me, because like I just haven't beat it yet. Like I'm like, it's kind of one of those that kind of goes on forever, but there's a story in the background. So yeah,
that's an interesting mashup, like a life sim mixed with arcade thing. Like that's interesting. It's
really cool. I'm definitely want to finish it and then like bring it for like a full conversation one day here, because I feel like I have a lot to say about it and how unique it is. But yeah, I wanted to shout it out.
Yeah, that's a good poll. There's an alternate world version of me that is on a podcast called Retro Quest instead of IndieQuest. So an indie game that marries retro style gaming with indie. That's right up my alley. I definitely want to play that one. Maybe in 2023. Well, that brings us to the final category then, fellas. The show's game of the year. Our collective game of the year. Now, I think we have this one pretty loose right now. I don't really even have an idea of what it would be. But if we were to kind of try to come to a consensus, what is the best meat in the middle for all of our tastes in terms of indie game released this year? What do you think? Does anybody have any thoughts on this that they want to toss out?
I do. I think it's going to be Tunic. I think it's Tunic. I just feel like it's Tunic.
Yeah, I also feel like it's Tunic.
Yeah.
I have Tunic with a question mark on my notes.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I feel like it hits all of our taste pretty spot on. So has the cozy vibes, has the optimistic feel to it, really great gameplay, really great artwork. I feel like it's pretty much a shoo-in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't going to say it, but gosh, it's hard for me to argue with you. I mean, if you guys really want it, I guess we can let that slide.
Steve's sitting over there and he's like, I mean, if you guys want to make my favorite indie game of the year, the show's indie game of the year.
I guess. Were there any other indie games that released in 2022 that all three of us played, even now that I think about it? Did we all play Neon White? No.
No, I didn't.
Nope.
I could see. I think that a game that each of us would like, even though I don't think Josh and I know I haven't played it. I think that an honorable mention, based purely off of our gaming interests, would go to Citizen Sleeper, because of what I've heard about it. I'm pretty sure we would really like that game. So, obviously, haven't played
I
it,
like a good reader, and that's definitely what that is.
Yeah.
One of my fun fact, one of my favorite games is Planescape Torment. I don't really talk about it too much, but I love that game. So, yeah, I used to do a PC gaming podcast, and we did that for an episode, and I couldn't put it down. So yeah, that's one of my favorite games too. So I feel like that's perfect. I would love that game.
Yeah, so would I.
That's been long on my list to play, by the way. Planescape Torment. Not to belabor the point, but it seems really good.
Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic.
I would also give an honorable mention. I mean, I'm happy to make Citizen Sleeper a runner-up here. I would give an honorable mention then to Beacon Pines. I know that Josh, you haven't had the chance to play it yet, but knowing your taste, I mean, I've been with you on the To the Moon and Finding Paradise episodes. I have a decent sense of how you would react to this game.
Yeah.
I think you would like it, and at least with Drachma and I both having played it and both enjoying it quite a bit. Even if it doesn't rise to number one because we haven't all played it, I think that it is one that we, as a show, can give a glowing endorsement for.
Yeah, I was like, when I was thinking about it, I was like, it's gonna be either Tunic, because I know you guys would really like Tunic, or that one. That was like the two that I was kind of going between. So that would be a perfect runner-up, I would think.
Yep, and I'm pulling seniority, so we're giving it to Tunic, and Beacon Pines can be a little down below.
I think Steve fully expected to come into this me to start arguing with him that Beacon Pine should go over Tunic, but I wasn't gonna do that. The thing about Tunic is, if we're going to make this like a real big game show, then you almost have to start leaning towards a bigger boy than Beacon Pines. And Tunic is a big boy. There's lots to do. It's very much in the public eye, for better and worse. So yeah, Tunic. I mean, like I said, Citizen Sleeper's up there. Games that maybe would be in like
Neon White. Probably.
Neon
if
White.
Me and you played that, I think that we would love it too. It seems like something we would enjoy. So.
Yes, Neon White's good. I'm sure that if a completely different group of three guys were doing this exact same thing, I could totally see somebody else picking Stray for similar reasons, right? I mean, Stray's.
I like Stray.
Yeah.
I did like Stray.
See, I haven't played Stray, but yeah.
I agree with everything you just said, Seth, but let me get on my soapbox about Stray for a second. Let me just be the Stray defender, okay?
Okay.
Stray is this poor cat, this adorable cat running through this post-apocalyptic cyberpunk world, and everyone was so excited about it, and then as soon as it came out, instantly, the sweeping narrative was like, yeah, Stray's a little bit of a letdown. Stray's fine. It's like, guys, Stray is good, okay? It's just objectively a fun game.
It's a good
right?
game. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
It is enjoyable. We don't need to desperately try to drag Stray underwater just to see a couple bubbles escape its mouth, right? Like, we can just let Stray be. Leave Stray alone.
Stray has clearly become the previous to release sensation that everyone, because it didn't quite live up to the exact hype that was in their mind for this game, and they were going to get to play as a cat, everybody just decided to, pun intended, dog it. So.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very much so. The lesson of the day: keep your expectations in check, people. All right, don't get too hyped ahead of a game. You're only setting yourself up for a disappointment, or for me to be mad at you. One of those two.
Yep.
Oh, well, excellent. All right, well then, this show's game of the year: Tunic. Runners up: Citizen Sleeper and Beacon Pines. 3 great games. All in all, fellas, I gotta say, indie or otherwise, what a good year! What a good year for games, man. Yep. We got some absolute bangers. So I think that in terms of the show, we revisited some great games that came out prior to this. All in all, I'm very content with kind of how my indie diet was in 2022, and I'm excited to keep that going strong in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, if only once again, about every other episode, I thank you guys and thank this show, but it has allowed me to broaden my horizons, and just the raw amount of games that I have made myself play because of this show is just, that's one of my favorite things about being on it. Like, I have pushed myself to play more indie stuff and more video games in general, because I'm still playing other games, right? So
Yep.
Right.
this is, in terms of beating games, specifically indie games, this was definitely by far my most successful year. I'm not out here beating over 100 games like Steve, but I'm definitely doing pretty well for Seth. So
Hey, you know what? In 2023, I have a child on the way. I don't think we're going to hit triple digits again. This could be your year, buddy.
You would be surprised with that paternity leave. Babies like to sleep. That's all I'm saying. And you like caffeine,
Right.
so
Oh, too true. Awesome. Josh, any closing thoughts or any words on 2022?
Yeah, I really did enjoy my year when it comes to like media in general, especially indie games. My goal this next year is to try to, I don't know if I want to like force myself to play a certain number of games a month or something, but it's just like I want to intake more and try to find some more obscure games that maybe we haven't heard about. I want to bring more games to the show where you go, oh, what is that? I never heard of that game. You know, like I think that's cool. I mean, it's fun to bring VVV and talk about that for 15, 20 minutes or whatever. But I want to bring like something you've never heard of. Like, I think that's one of the most fun parts of about the show, is discovering this weird little game you've never even knew existed on itch or whatever. So I want to bring more of that going forward. So, but yeah, I mean, from my experience, the Steam Deck was 2022. And I love the Steam Deck, and that really does change my intake of indie games. It's I don't know, I guess people did this with the Switch. I never really used Switch as a portable, and now I have a Steam Deck and I love it, so I don't understand my brain sometimes. But yeah, it's been my indie machine, so I just look forward to playing more on it. It's gonna be awesome.
that Steam Deck will be an excellent Tunic machine.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be like, I play it on PC and I'm sitting at my desk and it's great that way, but Tunic would really lend itself well to being played portably. So that would be cool.
I gotta say, to you, the IndieQuest listener, that's some good news. We just got Josh saying he's looking to dive deep and find the obscure. He wants to absolutely dominate the indiest indie game category next year.
Yeah.
And we have Drachma committing to trying to play some of the big hits, some of the highlight games, the headline
There we
games.
go. Yeah.
So he can dominate the game of the year discussion. We're hitting you with both barrels. You're going to get a whole big, juicy, the full food pyramid of indie games coming your way in 2023.
And then you get all the Steve side quests. So there you go.
Yeah.
I got your back.
Side quests that are easy to beat in 2 to 3 hours that are also easily played with a baby in your other hand. So that'll be Steve's list.
You know what? You know, pay attention right around April if you see those games start to crop up a little more often.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, any other parting thoughts, or should we just say thank you 2022, hello 2023, and move on to the plugs, which are timeless?
That sounds good.
All right. Why don't you take us away?
Okay. If you want to send us emails about your game of the year, your thoughts about 2022, your future goals for 2023 gaming or otherwise, we'd love to hear about it at IndieQuestPod on at gmail.com, or you can follow us on Twitter at IndieQuestPod. Steve, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch as Blinkoom. That's BLINKOOM. M like might be the last year I can play 100 games.
Yep.
You never know.
Seth, what about you?
You can find me at Captain Drachma on Twitter and in the Polymedia Discord. Best place on the internet. Josh, where can they find you?
You can find me at Frank Society on Twitter, also in the Discord for the fantastic Polymedia Network. And you know what's great about Polymedia Network? There's a lot of great shows like Polykill, a podcast all about beating video games, and I feel like the show is just funnier and funnier every time, and that's not just because I'm talking to the guy who's on the show. But yeah, it's a funny show. I really enjoy it. I'm actually looking forward to finding out what the new challenge is for next year. So if you have any tips, can you tell us what it is? Or...
I gotta say, I have been juiced for behind the scenes info on this challenge more than you would expect. People are ready. So for context, if anybody doesn't know, on Polykill, for the last 2 years now, we've issued a challenge to our listeners to beat games under certain constraints. The first year was to beat a game on every system and every handheld that you owned. Last year was to beat a game released in each year that you've been alive. And this year, it's going to be redacted. But that will be releasing on our next episode, and look forward to it. It's good times. And thank you for listening, Josh. Thank you.
Yeah. I've just been... you guys left me on the cliffhanger. I thought this last episode you were going to bring the challenge out and we would all know what it was. All right. No. Anyway, what are some other shows in the network you guys want to talk about?
I'll give a shout out. As long as we're, gassing up all the shows that Trav's on, I'm going to give a shout out to Drunk Friend. Great podcast with Trav, Ness Friend, and Alex, SNES Drunk, where theoretically they talk about games and or like YouTube, but in reality they talk about sports, and then they bring on people more talented than either of the two of them to kind of fill in the rest of the show. They do a great job though, and they've been doing this awesome run of episodes for months now, where they just did all of 1990 kind of year by year, doing a breakdown of all the media, games, movies, books, shows, everything from that year. And then they'd bring on guests for various episodes along the way. And they decided to keep that train rolling and just dropped their start of the 2000 aughts, which is primo for me, because like we're getting like squarely into like 10-year-old ish, like up through teenage Steve, which is like, tell me about the music that was popular when I was in high school. So I'm looking forward to at least the next 9 episodes being bangers. So now's the time to subscribe to that feed.
I will mention as well that if anybody hasn't listened to the Drunk Friend episode for 2000 yet, it is well worth a listen for at least the first 15 minutes, because
it was awesome.
There's a surprise there. I won't spoil it, but there's a surprise in there, and it's heartwarming to say the least. Like it's very cool. So, and also harsh to one of the co-hosts. But anyway, yes. I will shout out Tales of the Lesser Medium, because I think we should have something in our feeds for it soon. That's all I'll say, but little birdie told, I think, most of us that something is coming soon. So be on the lookout for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for listening to the show, supporting it, and hanging out with us for our fun superlatives, our reward show here. It's super official, There's going to be like plaques sent to all the developers, all that good stuff. So be on the lookout. It's going to just be like Steve with like a smirk, like, and then the thumbs up, and that's going to be the plaque you get. And everybody's going to be like, yeah, I definitely know what this is. It's an IndieQuest award. Anyway, Happy New Year, everybody. And thanks for supporting the show. And we'll catch you on the next one.